Thank you so much for the introduction, Eileen. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening, and especially a big thank you to Barbara for making this happen. It was, yes. It was Barbara who saw that I was planning a number of speaking tours to come here to the States. And she reached out to me and said, how about coming out to Denver? And I'm like, sure, it would be a pleasure to come out to Denver. And she's really the one who made this happen here this evening. So really, thank you, and thanks to all of you for coming tonight. Very quickly give a personal introduction for anyone who does not know me. And there are a number of you who've come up to me who said that you are already followers and watching or reading my stuff on a daily basis. And thank you so much for coming tonight and for introducing yourselves. It's always a pleasure of putting faces to people and creating real relationships, converting them from the online relationships. 2 seconds about me, and then we'll go into a number of different things and to really go deeper into what the title is of this evening, which is From Missiles to Miracles, and how to fight the growing anti-Semitism today. As you can hear from my voice, I was not born in Israel. I was born in New York City, Upper West Side of Manhattan. I was blessed to move together with my family to Israel when I was 16 years old. My parents went directly to the town of Efrat back in 1990. And anyone who knows math can figure out my age, that's all good. Back in 1990, Efrat was a small town. I think we were family number 400 then. Hardly anyone was driving the roads in the Judean hills. I don't know anyone who's been out to the Gush Etzion area of the Judean hills. It's south of Jerusalem, in between Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, and Hebron. From our porch, we look over Bethlehem, right into Jerusalem. Beautiful view. We could see the Temple Mount. If you have the binoculars, you could actually see the Dome of the Rock that's there, saving the place where the third temple will be built one day, please God. So we're blessed to live there. Got married to my wife, who was in New York at the time, so we moved back to live in New York City for a few years. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Riverdale. And then 5 years later, after 9/11, because I was in 9/11 for working in town when it happened, we were already planning on returning to Israel. And then in March 2002, we returned to Israel together with our firstborn son. And since then, my wife, and now we have 4 boys, 3 daughter-in-laws. We just married off 3 boys in the past year and a half in this war, all in the war. So happily living in Efrat with our boys and their wives living in other places around the country, all the way from Jerusalem to around Ramat Gan down to the Egyptian border. I actually wanted to start this evening giving context. I'm a big history buff, and there are some people who know history, even recent history, but most people have no clue. And mostly because it's not talked about. And we're talking about issues that impact us on a daily level, and we're not being informed of the correct context, even by our own Jewish organizations, synagogues, educational institutions. We're not being provided the information to properly understand what we're experiencing, whether it's the biblical history or whether it's the recent history of Gaza. So I wanted to just, in very, very short 2 minutes, give you some of the facts about the Jewish connection to the Gaza Strip, to understand the context of this war we are fighting today. And then we'll go deeper. And I'll also tell you who I am and why I'm standing here today. So first of all, it's important to understand there were Jewish communities in Gaza for thousands of years. There are rabbis in the Mishnah, in the Talmud, who lived in Gaza. Okay, how many people knew that? Oh, you guys are well informed, all right? Going even further, many Jews who were expelled from Spain 1492, went to live in Gaza. Jewish communities back in the 15th century, 16th century. I don't know how many people here sing Shabbat songs at the Shabbat table, but there is a favorite song of mine that I like to sing on Friday nights that is sung all over the world by Jews at the Shabbat table, Karibon. Anyone know who wrote Karibon? The chief rabbi of Gaza City, Rabbi Yisrael Najara, in the 17th century. How many Jews know that? How many Jews who sit at the Shabbat table singing that song on Friday nights know that? Instead, I don't think I'm exaggerating, that if you ask 99% of Jews today, and even committed Jews connected to Israel and Israel supporters, and even religious who sing this song on Friday nights, how many of them know that fact? That song was written by the chief rabbi of Gaza City in the 17th century. And from that time until 1929, Jews continuously lived in Gaza. What happened in 1929? The Arab-Muslim riots across the Holy Land of Israel, where Jews were massacred in Hebron. And because of that, the British expelled the Jews not only from Hebron, because they didn't want to defend us, they also expelled them from Gaza. And from 1929 until Israel liberated the Gaza Strip from Egyptian occupation in 1967, the Gaza Strip was Judenrein, Jew-free. And what so saddens me personally is in the discourse today, dealing with this Gaza war. And our reporters, our journalists, our editors, even our rabbis, hardly anyone is giving the proper context of the Jewish connection for thousands of years to Gaza. So now, take a step back and introduce myself. I am an organizational psychologist. I worked as a management consultant for a number of years for a global consulting firm called Accenture. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. Worked in their New York office. That's where I was working during 9/11. And then when I returned to Israel with my wife in 2002, I was blessed to be there exactly when they landed their first client in Israel, and I'm employee number 3 in Tel Aviv, opening up their Israel office back in 2002. I have no background in journalism, no background in media, no background in marketing. But I am a huge, proud Jew, active in standing up and being vocal for truth. And I'm also active politically as a direct result of that. So in Israel, I was very active politically. In the 1990s, because I made Aliyah with my family in 1990, I was out in the streets together with my family members protesting the Oslo Accords, screaming at the top of our lungs that it was going to bring terror and destruction and push peace further away, not bring it closer. And we were trampled in the streets by the police and the horses at the time. I was very active protesting the Gaza disengagement in 2005. And again, screaming at the top of my lungs, together with hundreds of thousands of other Israelis, that it would bring death, destruction, and terror, and push peace further away. And we weren't less in there then either. But I so believed how much of a destruction the Gaza disengagement would bring the Jewish people and the land of Israel that I literally went to my boss in Tel Aviv and said, listen, I need a leave of absence without pay. I can't continue working as if life is normal when a destruction is about to come upon the Jewish people. I have to go to Gaza and help try to stop this disengagement from happening and go to help the families there. He goes, listen, I think you're nuts. I don't understand why you want to do this, but I'm giving you a leave of absence without pay. And then I went back home to my wife, pregnant with our 3rd child, 6 months pregnant. I said, Rachel, I got to go. I don't know when I'm coming home. And then I disappeared and spent weeks trying to get into the Gaza Strip, succeeded in getting into the Gaza Strip, which in itself a movie has to be made about that. And to make a long story short, I ended up producing a movie about what happened that summer in the Gaza Strip. It's a movie called Home Game, and it documents the last youth basketball tournament that took place, the time that they were also struggling with their families to remain in their homes and save their communities and not have them destroyed and be expelled. Fabulous movie, and some people have actually spoken to me about maybe coming back in order to screen the movie again to the community. But what I want to show you right now is the video clip that started my journey that ended up pushing me to produce a full movie that then I screened in Israel and all over the world, and then had me leave my career in business consulting and set up a business and a nonprofit to use media, internet, videos to spread the truth about Israel that hardly gets heard. So, Naomi, if you're able to turn the lights off and put the video, what the clip you're about to see right now is that 4-minute clip that I made when I was in the Gaza Strip the last days before they were expelled from their homes. Just to give the context behind this video clip, that's all my footage. I had a video camera by accident. I didn't even go into the Gaza Strip with a video camera. And most of that footage was the actual last days and last day itself, when close to 10,000 Jews were physically removed from their homes in 21 thriving, beautiful communities in the Gaza Strip. And again, how many Jews today even know that in the context of this war? We'll have questions afterwards, okay? So I made that video, and I'm sure everyone here remembers, but once upon a time, and this is the summer of 2005, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there were no smartphones. All you had is a regular dumb phone with emails and text messages. And videos was on the internet was in its infancy, but somehow I figured out how to get this video on the internet and send out a link on email. Got 50,000 views in 2 weeks, and I decided I wanted to make a full movie about their story. And I was on this community of Netzer Chazani, which, even though it was a thriving Jewish community with tons of successful Jewish farmers who were growing unbelievable vegetables and flowers out of the desert sand and exporting it all over the world, it was a community of only 70 families, I think, small community. So that's what got me started in realizing that there is a need for harnessing and utilizing media to spread the truth about Israel and the Jewish people, and made a career change. Now let's go into what's going on today. And for those who follow me, again, I have a daily program called The Pulse of Israel. It's a video and podcast. I also write a lot in publications like JNS, Jerusalem Post, Arutz Sheva, Gateway Pundit. Start writing in the Front Page mag. And anyone can follow on any platform. Sign up on our website, pulseofisrael.com, or Facebook, Twitter, everything. And I talk about these issues because I like focusing and helping people focus on what's really going on, because we're living in a generation of sound bites, and there is so much information that's necessary. Forget about supporting Israel. It's about being proud Jews. So many Jews, especially young Jews today, are so embarrassed about their Jewish identity, so embarrassed about Israel. And I really believe a huge part of it is because they are being denied the actual information to assist them in knowing the truth about their ancestral homeland, both in a historical perspective and with what is going on in the day-to-day, in order to be proudly Jewish and be proud Jews. And I took on the fight. It's not just a media war about fighting the lies. That's the little fight. It's getting the truth out there in such a way to inspire Jews today, and non-Jews as well, but especially Jews, with the truth, so they could stand proudly with their heads held high in standing up supporting the Jewish state of Israel today and be proud Jews. Because I believe that is the one and only effective way in truly fighting the growing anti-Semitism. That's it. Because anti-Semitism is there and it's not going away. And fighting lies is not going to kill anti-Semitism. The way to fight anti-Semitism is by developing proud Jews. And you don't do that by ignoring the hard issues. You don't do that by ignoring the ancestral biblical rights to the Jewish people and not teaching our children today and being embarrassed to bring it up because, people of different political views are not going to be happy that I spoke about Israel in this way. We're losing a generation of Jews because we're neutered in standing up and saying what needs to be said to save our children. All right, now let's go into the tachlis, as we say in Jewish. Right? Let's go into the real issues. from missiles to miracles. I don't know how many of you have come and visited Israel during this war the past 2 years, and if any of you have been in Israel when rockets have been fired. But I want everyone to seriously take a step back for a second. I'm just one. There are other people here who live in Israel. From Denver, where are they? Okay. We've just been living 2 years with the most dangerous weapons on earth being shot at us on literally a daily level, meant to kill millions of us. That if it wouldn't have been Israel, if it would have been any other country in the world, we would have been destroyed. And yet, I'm here standing in front of you, and other Denver members who now proudly live in the Jewish state of Israel have returned home. We're now here today because we've been living 2 years of miracles. 2 years of miracles. All right, now, I want to take a step back, because even before this war, I would talk in my programming to help people understand, so that we're now the Jewish state of Israel is now 77 years young, 3,500 years old. That's how I like to help people give context about reality, right? That our youth are not being told either. But so up to 75 years before the war, 2 years ago, we were living 75 years of miracles. We're a tiny people. We're a tiny country. We're smaller than the state of New Jersey. We're not even close to Colorado. We're tiny. Surrounded by billions of people, educated. They don't all have the means, but they're educated to not want us to be there. And we've had continuous wars, 48, 56, 67, 73, countless terror. And yet we're a thriving society. When I moved to Israel, Israel was still a third world country. Today, we're one of the most successful countries in the world. On every level. Economically, tech-wise, medicine-wise, medical, we're exporting good all over the world. And for 77 years, we've been doing this under a state of war. So when people say, oh, we're now in the Gaza war, I'm like, no. We're in the 77th year of the Independence War. It never ended. It's the same enemies who keep on changing their narratives in order to try to succeed. And again, I'm talking to a population that knows. Once upon a time, the conflict was called what? The Arab-Israeli conflict. There was no mention about a people called Palestinians. It was the Arab-Israeli conflict. Today, you speak to anybody, and what's the conflict? Oh, it's about Palestine. It was never about Palestine. It was the Arab-Muslim determination to destroy Israel. Every few years, it was just different actors. 1 year was Iraq, another year it's Jordan, then all of a sudden it's terror from Egypt, now it's terror from people who call themselves Palestinians. It's the same war for 77 years. And anyone who says, no, it doesn't make sense, a war for 77 years, anyone here celebrate the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah? Right? Anyone who knows the history, our Jewish history, even though we celebrate 8 days of miracles, did the Hanukkah story, the battle against the Hellenists, end in 8 days? No. It took decades. There were ups and downs. Battles we won, battles we lost. We liberated the temple, and then we lost the temple. We liberated, we lost it. That's Hanukkah. And we are missing this understanding today that, one, we're in the 77th year of the Independence War, and that every single second of our existence is a miracle. And why is that important? Because at the end of the day, again, I don't care how religious someone is, their personal observance, I don't care. The bottom line is, we the Jewish people only exist thousands of years later, defeating enemies generation after generation, because we're looked over by a God above. And the second we take God out of our story, we're in trouble. And the only reason we're around and we're here today in this room and our children are Jewish is because we've allowed God to be in the story. The second a Jew takes God out of his personal story, the sad thing is, say goodbye to that rest of the family. They're no longer part of Jewish history. They've written themselves out of the Jewish story. How many Jews are there today? 15 million? We haven't even reached the number of the pre-Holocaust. And yet we're an ancient people. We're older than Christianity. We're older than Islam. They're in the billions. We didn't lose billions of Jews because of enemies. We lost millions. We've lost billions of Jews over the years because Jews have written God out of their personal story. And to look at this war today and to not recognize the 2 years of miracles within the context of the 77 years of miracles, that's really doing a disservice to ourselves. And I don't hear enough talk within the Jewish community, regardless of the denominations, and definitely not being talked about in educational institutions and for our young kids today. We have the most miraculous story of humanity. Any Jew who truly understands the miraculousness of our story would be a proud Jew and be able to stand up against the lies that are spread against us every single day. But our high schools aren't telling the story properly. Our elementary schools aren't telling the story properly. And synagogues don't want to tell our story properly because it's too political. It's not politics, it's our identity. And we're losing Jews, especially the youth, day in and day out. So let's just touch upon some of the miracles in this 2-year war. All right? Just some of them. Miracle number 1. Right? There is a very well-known professor, expert on Islam in the Middle East, who I like to interview all the time as part of my Pulse of Israel programs. Some of you might know him, either through me or by yourselves. Professor Mordechai Kedar. Right? A half a year before the war erupted on October 7th, before they attacked us brutally, the most tragic day in our modern Jewish history since the Holocaust, he wrote an article detailing what an Iranian contact of his told him about and sent him information about an Iranian, plan to use all of its proxies and attack Israel all at the same time to destroy Israel. That was supposed to happen. They've been planning this plan for decades. All right? October 7th was supposed to be a land invasion from Hamas in Gaza, a missile attack from Hamas in Gaza, a land invasion from Hezbollah in the north, a missile attack from the Hezbollah in the north, a missile attack from the Houthis in Yemen, a missile attack from Iran, a missile attack and land invasion from Syria. I'm not supposed to be standing here today. The Jewish world is supposed to be here today with no Jewish state of Israel. That was what Iran was planning on for decades and building and investing the trillions of dollars over decades. Not everyone likes to hear this, but the miracle is that we only lost 1,200 Jews on October 7th because it was supposed to be all 10 million Israeli citizens. It's a hard thing to internalize. But that's the true picture. And with all the sadness of the tragedy of October 7th, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the baby is the miracle that for whatever reason, only God knows, Hamas decided to attack on its own without first getting permission from Iran about the coordinated attack. They assumed that the second they attack, Iran would kick in and Hezbollah would kick in and everything. And the miracle is that it didn't happen. That's one side of the miracle. Want to know what the other side of the miracle is? Iran's plan was to destroy us totally. Guess what? Who's been destroyed today? The Iranian axis of evil. The ring of fire that it invested trillions of dollars developing. Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen. Syria, the Bashar Assad regime in Syria. Hamas in Gaza. Israel, none of them are totally destroyed. We still have work to do. And this is what pains me when people say, we have to end the war. 2 years, it's a long time. We have to end the war. No, we have to end the war when our enemies are defeated and can't do this again. It's not over yet. And there's so many reasons why the war is still going on 2 years. But the way we end it is not by saying, okay, we're going to end it because we just want to go on with our lives as if things are going to be fine. No, things are not going to be fine as long as our enemies are still able to rebuild and attack us another day. Hamas is still in Gaza to be able to rebuild. Hezbollah is still in Lebanon able to rebuild. Houthis have an army of hundreds of thousands, and it's not something to laugh at. The Iranian Shiite regime, the Islamic regime of Iran, still exists to be able to rebuild, and they're already rebuilding and investing, and now with China and maybe Russia. But still, the miracle is that we have done tremendous damage to that Iranian axis of evil, also funded by Qatar. Okay, very important that everyone also understands that as well. So from the miracle of surviving October 7th, because we were supposed to be, Israel was supposed to be totally destroyed, to now be in the position where Israel, and anyone can argue with me, but I truly believe the Jewish people in the Jewish state of Israel have never been in a stronger geopolitical situation as a nation than since biblical times. From when October 7th was supposed to be our destruction. And the major difference between Israel and American Jewry, and again, anyone who lives in Israel definitely, or has visited Israel, is the difference in mindset. Because in Israel, even though we still are trying to get our hostages back, we're still focused on the tragedy of October 7th. It's never going to leave us. I personally have 2 sons fighting in this war. One since the very beginning as part of his regular service. He's supposed to finally finish his army service in 2 months, please God. And another in reserve duty, so he's been called in twice. And I'm in reserve duty. I've just been called up for my 4th time also. So even though we're living that, there is a sense of resilience and optimism and of a bright future, understanding we're beating our enemies in order that there never be another October 7th atrocity ever again. So that's the mindset in Israel. You come visit Israel, yeah, you could still feel some sadness. Of course, it's still there. But you feel the resilience of the Jewish people, of us moving forward, of us being victors and building. Building down south, building up north, building in some of thank God, in the summer of 2005, 21 Jewish communities were destroyed in the Gaza Strip. At the same time, 4 Jewish communities were destroyed in northern Samaria. And right now, anyone who followed me probably saw this, because I just posted this the other day. The first kindergarten just opened up in the community of Chomesh, which was one of the 4 Jewish communities in northern Samaria that was destroyed this summer of 2005. So that community was Judenrein for 20 years. And families are finally back, and the first kindergarten with children just opened up there. That's the resilience of the Jewish people. We're not focused on sitting in our tragedy and in our sadness. We're moving forward. But yet you come to America, and 99% of the focus is still on the sadness and the tragedy of October 7th. No one's here giving over the resilience and the moving forward together with the challenges and the sadness of the war effort. All the protests here are for the hostages, which is fine. Fine, but the mindset of the people, when they're only thinking about the hostages, is 100% of the tragedy of October 7th and not able to move forward and connect with the resilience of the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel today. So they're still stuck in October 7th mindset. But you come to Israel, and again, anyone who's not been in Israel yet, come. Book your tickets tonight. Come here, leave here and call your travel agents or book online. It is such a boost of energy in your personal lives to come there and experience it yourselves. And then come back. Or don't come back. But if you do come back, then be able to spread that to your family, to your friends, to your neighbors, to your communities, and then be in touch with me about spreading that even more. Because that's so important. We're doing ourselves a disservice by just focusing on the tragedy and just focusing on the hostages. We're always focused also on the hostages. But not only. There's more to our Jewish identity and more to the future of the Jewish state of Israel than returning our hostages. That is part and parcel of what we're doing and fighting for. But it's also to move forward. So those were just two of the many miracles in this war. I mean, I can do a whole talk just on the miracles in this war. But I gave you two of the major ones. Where we started, supposed to be destroyed October 7th, yet we miraculously were not. And where we are today, the strongest geopolitical position of the Jewish people ever. And again, it saddens me that there is little to no perspective in the daily reporting, even in the Jewish news. Forget about the New York Times, forget about CNN, forget about Fox. I'm not expecting this from them. But from the Jewish news reporting, yeah, the war's not over yet. But we, the Jewish people, have never been in the strongest geopolitical position ever in our history since biblical times. We are a feared force in the world right now. A feared force by our enemies because of what we've been able to accomplish these past 2 years. So many, and again, the miraculous, what I call James Bond-like beeper operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Like, come on. Even me, before that James Bond beeper operation, I did not think how we would be able to beat Hezbollah. Okay, because I know our army, I know the people who run the army, I know we're not prepared to take on Hezbollah property, and it wasn't the army that beat Hezbollah. It was the Mossad. It was that Mossad operation that then paved the way for the army to do what's necessary, and we still did not finish the job against Hezbollah. That still has to be taken care of. All right, but Hezbollah's been neutered totally. Okay, so that's just like another miracle. So many miracles. And in the daily reporting, it's demoralizing, and it's sad, and this is bad, and that's bad. And we're doing a disservice to the Jewish people by not allowing, and especially our youth, again, not giving the context to understand what's really going on and the unbelievable, miraculous situation of where the Jewish people are today. Okay. Now let's jump into October 7th and anti-Semitism. Because the big question is, and this is not being asked about, this is not being spoken about enough, and even those who are talking about it are totally off in their answers. Why, after the Jewish people experienced the worst tragedy since the Holocaust, did anti-Semitism grow after October 7th? Right? We're Jewish people. We try to be good people. We think other people would be good people. Sympathy. Bad things happen to other people. We sympathize. We're the first ones out there in the streets to protest if bad things are happening to other people. Inequalities to other people. The first ones. Whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Because we're Jews. And yet post-October 7th, not only did we not get the sympathy, forget about the sympathy of the world, sympathy of coworkers, sympathy of neighbors, sympathy of other organizations that we partnered with to help them. They know us, and we've been there for them. Not only no sympathy, anti-Semitism skyrocketed. And we can't solve the anti-Semitism problem if we don't answer the question to ourselves properly, how did that happen? Like, I'm a big believer, like, if you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you the wrong diagnosis, it doesn't make a difference what pill he gives you. It's not going to work. It's only going to work if he gives you the correct diagnosis, and then that pill or treatment is what treats that correct diagnosis. So it doesn't make a difference how many millions of dollars the Jews are donating to all the organizations fighting anti-Semitism. If they're not properly telling us why this anti-Semitism is growing since October 7th, then every penny of those millions of dollars are being thrown in the toilet. Literally. So I'm going to tell you why anti-Semitism is growing after October 7th, that nobody in the Jewish world is daring to talk about. And this goes a little history. Let's start with this. Before 1948, when you would open up the New York Times, and this is all archived, and you can all Google search it yourselves, who was called the Palestinians? The Jews were called Palestinians. One of the greatest headlines of all, again, New York Times headline, front page, Arabs invade Palestine. Well, they're invading to kill their fellow Palestinian Arabs? No! They're invading the Jews! They want to destroy the Jews. They want to kill the Jews. Right? It was the Jews who were called Palestinians. Golda Meir's famous video clip in an interview, I'm a Palestinian, and she pulls out her British Mandate of Palestine passport. Golda Meir, British Mandate of Palestine, right? Okay, that's number one. Then let's go to the United Nations partition plan. When was the last time someone actually read it? Right? Well, I challenge everyone to read it yourselves and tell anybody else to read it. Because the partition plan calls for the establishment of two states, right? What are the two states? A Jewish state and an Arab state. Is there any mention of a people called Palestinians? Nada. No mention of a people called Palestinians. And I imagine if there was a people called Palestinians, they would have been mentioned in the partition plan that the United Nations was deciding to give them a state. But it's not there, because they didn't exist. They're Arabs who lived there together with Jews who lived there when the Jews were called Palestinians. Now let's go between 1948 and 1967. How many times was there ever a demand for the establishment of a state called Palestine in Judea and Samaria, which is erroneously called the West Bank, and Gaza? How many times? Never. When they were being occupied by their own brethren. Jordan was occupying Judea and Samaria. Egypt was occupying Gaza. And again, I said occupying because the world wouldn't recognize it. Believe it or not, the world did not recognize them. They were legally occupiers. Don't you think if there was such a people and there was such a demand and it was such justice for them to have their own state that there would have 19 years? Nada. Zero. Now let's go to the real clincher. Because what I've been building up is that there is an agenda out there which is behind the growing Jew-hating anti-Semitism today that the Jewish world is ignoring. Okay? And here's the real kicker. In the 1960s, there was a propaganda campaign developed by the KGB of the Soviet Union. And again, this is not unbreakable talking. Anyone can research it. Colonel Richard Kemp of the British Army actually writes about this extensively and talks about this, about a Romanian defector to America who details how the Soviet Union created the Palestinian national identity, this is in the early 1960s, as a way to legitimize terror against Jews, to destroy the Jewish state of Israel, and weaken America. Because at the time, the Soviet Union wanted to stop America's growing influence in the Middle East via Israel. Now, you guys understand this? The champions of propaganda, the Soviet Union, communism, created the Palestinian national identity to legitimize Jew hatred, violence against Jews, terrorizing Jews in order to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. Now do you understand why Jew hatred is growing after October 7th? Because the whole world has swallowed hook, line, and sinker the narrative of the Palestinian national identity created by the Soviet Union, which was not just about destroying Israel, but also about destroying America. And where do we know that from? Well, there's another KGB defector named Yuri Bezmenov, and forgive me for not remembering the Romanian one, but Yuri Bezmenov was interviewed on one of the American news channels in the early 1980s, and I can send anyone the clip if they want to. It's online on YouTube. And again, this is back when all media only was ABC, CBS, and NBC. Remember those days? Right? Okay, so like a third of America was watching this at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And he was interviewed, and he explains in the 1960s, the same time that the Soviet Union created the Palestinian national identity as a way of legitimizing terror against Jews and Jew hatred to destroy Israel and weaken America, they also were working on infiltrating American universities to teach anti-America messaging and instead teach American students socialist messaging. And he was being interviewed in the 1980s, and he said, we already have captured, he was saying, Soviet Union, 1980s, we already captured one generation of United States professors across America. When 3 generations of American professors on college campuses are teaching this stuff, the damage to America is irreversible. Hey, this is in an interview he said in the 1980s. Guess how many generations of U.S. professors have been since the 1980s? We're way past 3. Now you understand what's going on in America today? This is something that was created by the Soviet Union in the 1960s, that even though the Soviet Union no longer exists, their communist agenda has successfully, probably the most successful propaganda campaign and the most successful anti-Semitism on a global level that was created in the 1960s. And it's about destroying America by weaponizing anti-Semitism and destroying Israel. That's what's going on. Now donate millions of dollars to an organization that says it's going to fight anti-Semitism and not say a word about this, because it's not politically correct to acknowledge that there is no people called Palestinians, and they're just Arabs who actually came from different places over the past 100 or so years, and today call themselves Palestinians. And from my perspective, they can call themselves whatever they want, but they have no historical right to a state in the ancestral Jewish homeland that the Jewish people are connected to for over 3,500 years. How are you going to fight anti-Semitism by donating money to organizations that don't acknowledge that? They're not. And all of our kids and grandkids on college campuses are left with 0 bullets in their gun to be able to deal, and forgive me for that, it's a horrible analogy, with zero tools in their toolkit, thank you, much better, to deal with the growing Jew-hating anti-Semitism on college campuses, where they're screaming, globalize the Intifada, decolonize America and destroy America. What does the war in Gaza have to do with decolonize America? It has nothing to do with it unless you understand that anti-Semitism was weaponized to destroy Israel and America using Palestine. That's what is going on. That's the information we're not being told. Jews aren't being told this. Americans aren't being told this. Because this is so much bigger than Jews. We are the canary in the coal mine. Okay? And two problems are happening right now. Again, anyone who what's the canary in the coal mine? The canary is in the coal mine, and because there's no air left, the canary dies, and then that lets the miners understand we got to get out of here, right? So two things are happening now. The Jews in America are the canary, not recognizing that the air is being taken out of the room. Okay? And the non-Jews in America are not seeing that this anti-Semitism, which is basically air being taken out of the room because it's all happening to the Jews, basically is a forebearer of bad things that are going to come to all Americans, not just America. Where's the positive in all this? So, two aspects to the positive. One aspect to the positive is the Jewish people in the Jewish state of Israel today. We are the future of the Jewish people. We've miraculously survived this war. There's still going to be ups and downs. We're not out of it yet. But the trajectory is positive. And the future of the Jewish people is positive in Israel. It's not positive in Paris. France has already fallen. Not positive in Sweden. Sweden's already fallen. Not positive in Britain. Britain's already fallen. Guess what country's next? America. I mean, Canada, Australia, they're in the process of falling as well. And America is, I mean, out of all those countries, America has the best chance of surviving. But if you think what's going on now in America is bad, you don't know what's coming. This is nothing. And all someone has to be is a student of history and a student of Jewish history, because history repeats itself. And I pride myself on being a student of Jewish history. And I enjoy history, and I like learning from it. And you go to Jewish history, this isn't the first successful diaspora for Jews. Germany was a hugely successful diaspora for Jews. Hugely successful. Guess when the hatred hit the fan? It wasn't because of the ultra-Orthodox Jews in shtetls in Poland. It's because of the success of the assimilated Jews who wanted nothing to do with Judaism in Germany. Spain, same thing. We succeeded. We were the top of the game of Spanish society. One of the top advisors to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella was who? A famous rabbi, Abarbanel, who the Queen actually said, "Oh, just convert and we'll save your life." And he said, "Sorry, Queen, I'm out of here." And he ran away. Anti-Semitism gets bad when we succeed in assimilating and forget that we're Jews and we're supposed to be different. Guess where we are in America today? We successfully assimilated. So much so that most Jews in America today don't want anything to do with you being Jewish. That's how successful America has been for the Jewish people. And that's why we're only 15 million and not the billions that we're supposed to be, since we're the oldest nation. Religion. But again, the future for us, it is so good in Israel. That's the future of the Jewish people. And what I like to tell everybody is, one, if you're not yet living in Israel, think of coming to move to Israel. Not for you, You have children or grandchildren, get them there. They need to go to college, they're in college. You know how much money you could save by sending them to Israel? And be able to visit them. And they go to college campuses where the whole environment is Jewish. And the Jewish holidays are the national culture. And they don't have to worry about Jew hatred. I mean, again, I'll quote a rabbi that worked with my father. My father's one of the best tour guides in Israel. And a colleague of his used to work with in the same company was a Reform rabbi. And he used to deal with all the Reform groups and Reform synagogues that came to Israel. And this Reform rabbi used to tell his Reform congregations, the biggest issue in the Reform movement is Jewish continuity, right? How do we ensure that our children remain Jewish? He goes, I got the answer. There's only one solution for Jewish continuity for Reform Jews. Move to Israel. That's the only one. In Israel, you could be whatever type of Jew you want to be. Religious, ultra-Orthodox, atheist, secular, Reform, conservative, your own flavor. But you're part of the Jewish people, you're part of the Jewish culture. Much less chance of being lost to the Jewish people, of intermarrying, of having not wanting to be part of it. Again, the religious population in Israel were a minority. But there is something natural about being brought up and raising your children, regardless of your personal religious level, in the Jewish ancestral homeland of Israel. The majority of young Jews today fighting this war, they're not religious, but they understand they're fighting for our ancestral right to live and protect ourselves and have a bright future for the world by living in Israel. And I'll give you this inspiring story also. There was an organization in Israel called Kesher Yehudi. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It's actually an ultra-Orthodox organization that was established decades ago in order to help bridge the social divide between ultra-Orthodox and secular Jews in Israel. And it's not about religion, it's just about getting them together to know each other, to break down the bridges and the divides. October 7th happened, and they decided to do events for survivors of the Nova Music Festival, for families of hostages, families of those killed. And over the year, they had these events. Again, nothing to do with religion. It was just about bringing ultra-Orthodox and them, because most of them are secular Jews, or not religious Jews, and just to be able to bridge the divide so that issue can be dealt with in more unity within the Jewish people. Okay? The first anniversary of the Nova Music Festival disaster was what day? Simchat Torah, right? And because they are so careful not to be perceived as using this platform that they've developed to coerce religion upon the secular Israelis, they decided not to have an event on Simchat Torah, the first anniversary. They just didn't think that was appropriate because people would perceive them as trying to coerce religion and they didn't want to go there. Survivors of the Nova Festival contacted Kesher Yehudi 2 weeks before Simchat Torah, saying, how come you're not having an event? We need this. We need this inspiration to raise our spirits. What you're doing is so important. Please do an event for the first anniversary on Simchat Torah. And it's only because the demand came from these secular Israeli survivors of the Nova Festival that this ultra-Orthodox organization had this event on Simchat Torah at the Ramada Hotel in Jerusalem, where they had hundreds of ultra-Orthodox families and hundreds of families of survivors, of Nova survivors and of hostages and of the October 7th tragedy. And they all came together for a very religious celebration for the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah. And I was invited to the second night, right here in Israel, here in America, outside of Israel, there's 2 days of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. It's a 2-day holiday. In Israel, we only have 1 day, but because we love the Torah so much, we also sing and dance the second night. It's called Hakafot Shniyot, right? So the holiday of Simchat Torah is over, So those of us who are observant, we're now able to pick up our phones and do whatever and go on with life, but we still get together to sing and dance with the Torah. So I was invited to the second night of singing and dancing. I wasn't there for the actual holiday, and my mind was blown. Because again, everything I'm telling you now is because I actually spoke to the survivors themselves and to parents who were there. And what do you think the most energetic, exciting, and inspiring song is that they were singing and dancing to that evening? It's one of the most popular songs in Israel during this war. Hashem Yitbarach Ohev Oti, right? God above loves me. Od yoter tov ve'od yoter tov. Things are going to be better and better. And to see this dancing floor of ultra-Orthodox, religious, secular, dancing and singing together, singing this song, that's the reality of the Jewish people today. Don't buy the headlines in any newspaper you read, Jewish or not Jewish. Yes, we have issues. Yes, we have societal tensions. Yes, we have problems. Because you know what? We're a nation of people. And people give each other problems. Even if you have two people. Anyone here married? Right? So anyone here in a marriage that there are never any issues between a husband and wife? No, God did not create us that way. We're supposed to have issues because we're supposed to work on the issues. That's the way of man. So anyone who thinks and is always focused, and again, you read the news, and especially the Jewish news, oh, and this problem in Israel, and that problem in Israel, and the ultra-Orthodox this, and this protest movement. Is this the only country that this is happening? Well, and no societal tensions in America. No protests in America, right? It's normal. We're a normal country. We're a normal people. And yeah, you pick up the news on any daily basis. This is horrible. And that's horrible. And he hates him. And this politician is corrupt. We're no different than anybody else. Except in one way. As a people, we know God is watching us. And yes, many Israelis, even who are not religious in the traditional daily sense of the word, are very much connected as a people, unified, and have an understanding that God above is watching over us. That's why your children and grandchildren should be in Israel, because that's the beautiful future of the Jewish people in Israel today. So that's positive number one in terms of the reality that I was explaining before. And what's positive number two? Positive number two is the pulse of Israel. Because on a daily basis, I do my best. And again, it's not about the sound bites. It's not about hasbara. It's not about fighting the media lies. But on a daily basis, it's about helping people understand the depth of the issues of what's going on beyond the headlines, so that people can have a better understanding of what's really going on to the Jewish people in the Jewish state of Israel today, so they can be proud to be Jewish, proud of the Jewish state of Israel, be inspired, and hopefully not only not be confident enough to stand up for themselves, but be confident enough to help save other Jewish souls, not to be lost because they don't have enough information. All right, and one personal anecdotal story to add to this is I was part of an Israeli foreign ministry delegation back in 2012, so this is 13 years ago, where there was a special project sending us to college campuses all over the world, mostly America and South Africa and Britain, and I was sent to Berkeley. All right, and this is all during anti-Israel apartheid week, right, where the height of the anti-Israel activism, and this is 2012, so it's nowhere near the level of today, but it was still bad, right? And anti-Israel apartheid week at Berkeley University was them actually setting up an apartheid wall in the middle of College Square, whatever it's called there in Berkeley, and then doing the play theater of being dressed up as Israeli soldiers with guns and pulling people's hair and throwing them to the ground and putting guns in their faces, right? All in order to get passerby or students to see how horrible Israel is and the IDF and that we're Nazis and all that rubbish, right? And I was there together with the Hillel director and the students of Berkeley, the Jewish students, together with the Hillel director. And they were all there standing with signs. One sign said, the Jewish people support the two-state solution. Another sign said, we want peace. Another sign said, Israel created the cherry tomato, right? Another one is, Israel is the startup nation, right? And we can laugh at this, but unfortunately still today, many organizations use those same exact talking points in trying to stand up for themselves in Israel. And I went up to the Hillel director. I said, listen, you're on the wrong playing field. They're trying to call us out as baby killers, and you're trying to say we want peace. They don't care if we want peace. I said, do this for me. Write a sign that says, I'm an IDF soldier, ask me anything. Because I was an IDF soldier, so I could do this, right? And I walked into the middle of their street theater, right, when they were doing all their horrible things, with a sign up like this, and then students passing by came up to me and started asking me questions. And all I needed to do was be able to answer their questions with enough facts as possible to show them that these street theater anti-Jewish activists are fools and know nothing what they're talking about, so the passerbys just walk back and are not influenced anymore by them. I said, that's what you have to do. And anytime I speak to college students or I speak to children, to kids in Israel before they go to college, and they ask me a very basic question, which is a great question. They hear my talk and then they go, what can we do on college campus to help Israel? Please tell us, we want to be active, we want to help. I'm like, okay, great question. You're not going to like my answer. Right? And then I say, nothing you do on college campus will help Israel. Israel's going to be fine no matter what you do or what you don't do on your college campus. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But you know why you should know Jewish history, modern Israeli history, biblical history, when you go onto that college campus of yours? In order to save your own Jewish soul. Because if you don't know enough information, then you could be swayed by all of the lies and the propaganda that they're spewing. And then if you do know the information, and you're able to stand up and talk back in a way that shows anybody else that they're fools, you could also be saving other Jewish souls. So that when they walk by and they hear you talking to them, they understand, oh God, those guys are fools, they have no clue what they're talking about. Yeah, I'm standing with Israel. Because any argument with an anti-Semite, anti-Israel person, you're not supposed to be talking to them. You're supposed to be talking for the passerbyers to hear. And that's what's necessary in order to provide that information so that people of any age, but especially the youth who are on the front line in their schools and their college campuses, that they be proud Jews. And that's what I try to provide in the Pulse of Israel on a daily basis. So anyone who is not yet a subscriber, please join and subscribe. And we need help because we live in a visual world. We live in a world where perception trumps reality, where lies trump facts, where people like to give $1 million donations to big fancy organizations that hold dinners that cost millions of dollars, but that waste most of it on salaries, as opposed to the small activists on the ground who actually try to make the biggest differences possible with virtually no donations, because people only like to be giving the big checks to the big organizations with the big dinners. So I'm one of those organizations with a staff of 7 people in the center of Jerusalem, doing our best, standing on the front line and being a voice of truth to help inspire and be able to save Jewish souls. It's not just about fighting the lies, it's not just about the media war, it's about saving Jewish souls. And that's what gets me excited when I wake up in the morning every day, and that's why I hardly ever go to sleep at night. So anyone, if this talks to you, or if you know other people who this talks to, and if you want me to go back to Israel and be able to tell people in Israel, we got people in America who understand that, yeah, it's about time. we're getting the truth out there. And yes, the Israeli government doesn't do Google Hasbara, and yes, many organizations out there are not doing what's necessary and not talking about the issues that are necessary, but they understand that we are. And they want to help us to make sure we are able to do more work that is necessary to be able to reach more Jews and more youth as necessary, as quickly as possible. So if you're one of those people, we would definitely appreciate the help, whether it's $50,000 or whether it's $5 million. And if you know people I should be talking to, that's appreciative as well. So everyone here, if you did not take one yet, you're all able to pick up one of our brochures, which we just put together, and we just handed out at our 3rd annual conference we had at the Begin Center in Jerusalem. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee was our keynote speaker at the Begin Center for our 3rd conference. That's one of the things we are about. We're about changing the narrative in our conferences we have every year in order to help us change the narrative, one step ahead of the game of the rest of the world and trying to talk the truth that everyone else is too embarrassed to talk about, so we get out there. And this year was about how this war is forcing the Jewish people to be who we're supposed to be, which is a light unto the nations. Because day to day, 99.9% of Jews, we just want to live. Just leave us alone. We just want to live. Which Jew wants to be a light unto the nations? Just stop hating me. Right? And this war is forcing us to internalize we have a greater purpose. Not just to wake up in the morning, go to the job if you have a job, enjoy retirement, and then go to sleep at night. We have a purpose as a people. And that purpose is to be connected to God, follow God as best as possible, each in his own way, be a nation in the chosen land that God gave us to then be able to spread Torah all over the world. From Zion, Torah shall be spread. That is the ultimate purpose of the Jewish people. And by standing up for truth, morality, and God from Israel as a people where we're supposed to be, that's how we impact the world. Doesn't make a difference what they say, that genocide, baby killers, doesn't make a difference the lies. We have to stop thinking about the lies. We have to start focusing on the truth. And I think it's very important as parents. I'm sure almost everyone here is parents. Same thing you say to your kids, you raise your kids. You're like, no, don't be impressed by the lies. Act the way you're supposed to act. Same thing as a people. We can't be impressed and change our behavior because of the lies. And this is very, very sad. This is a real situation. There was just an op-ed in the Jerusalem Post this week by someone who was a former senior executive of Jewish organizations saying Israel is losing American Jewry. And I read it, I'm like, what? Because he's saying a majority of Americans are not happy with the way Israel is fighting this war. And then, and Mamdani, most Jews in New York support Mamdani because Israel's horrible. And I'm like, no. This guy, the senior executive, unfortunately talks for a majority. He does talk for a majority of American Jews. They're more embarrassed about Israel doing what's necessary to prevent another October 7th ever happening again because they don't like how the rest of the world is talking about us. Well, I hope that's not the way he educated his children. But at the end of the day, we make a difference in this world by standing up for what's true, by standing up for morality. And yes, and that's also standing up because understanding that God is the one running this world. So that's the beauty of what we bring. That's the conference we just had. Anyone who picked it up, you could read more about everything we're about. We also work with politicians in order to strengthen the U.S.-Israel Strategic Alliance. And on the last page, we have all the different ways that you can contribute, whichever way makes sense for you. And if you didn't take one yet, please take one to be able to be more familiar with the stuff we do. And obviously, you can go on to my website. And I understand not everyone necessarily agrees with everything I say. Definitely not every day. And that's okay. And I throw the challenge back to you. Anytime you do have a question, you do have a comment, you do disagree, please share that with me. I'm approachable. Send me an email. Contact me with your question or comment. And it would be a pleasure to be able to have a very respectable discourse, because I like having respectable discourses, even with people I totally disagree with. It's all good. It's a lost art in today's world of 2025, but I still believe in it. And so very available. And also, anyone who has any issues with family members or friends or children of friends and dealing with the challenges of being influenced with the anti-Israel environment today, do not hesitate to reach out any way I can help in terms of providing information or advice in moving forward and how to deal with that. It would be a pleasure to be able to help out. So with that, I will open up to you for questions. And all questions are good. Any question is good. Yes. And you raised your hand earlier. I didn't forget. Okay. Yes. Yes. Ladies first.
Maybe I just didn't hear this because I didn't hear a lot. But I understood what you said about when the KGB created the Palestinian
National identity,
how that would weaken Israel and the Jewish people. But how would that weaken America?
Well, the best way to answer you is to actually see what's going on today. Because again, when you look at the college campuses and you look at the protests, they're not just, this isn't Iran, this is American cities. They're not just calling for the destruction of Israel. They're literally, destruction, the ease of getting, it's easy to get someone to hate a Jew, right? All you have to say is the Jews run the world. Oh, I hate them. That's all you have to say. Whether it's true or not, doesn't make a difference. They'll believe it. The Jews are committing genocide. Oh my God, horrible people, right? Once you get them to understand that, it's then easy to get them to also scream, let's destroy America, because the Jews run America. The Jews run the banks. The Jews run the media. Right? It's more a psychological connection than a physical connection. And it's obviously on top of all the other anti-America messages that they're being taught on college campuses today. But literally, I mean, again, there are plenty of professors, whether in classrooms or at protests, where in the same breath that they're calling students to call for the destruction of Israel, they're also calling for the decolonization and the destruction of America. So even if I'm not giving the exact answer to connect A to B to C, we actually see the result of it today, how they're interconnected. Right? So I always say to non-Jews, right? Forget about Jews. If you care about America, stand up for the Jewish people, stand up for the Jewish state of Israel, because we're the canary in the coal mine. So if you allow that to happen, and again, the scary thing is, anti-Semitism has always existed everywhere. Right? And again, I was blessed to grow up in New York City, 1970s, 1980s, lived there in the 1990s. Okay? Life was good. I personally never felt anti-Semitism. There was anti-Semitism. I personally never felt it. But again, if you look historically, the countries where anti-Semitism took hold and destroyed the Jewish people is when it became institutionalized. Well, guess what? Again, I'm not trying to be political here, just trying to be factual. You have Rashida Tlaib, who just the other day was talking about how now there are Palestinians all over America and we're going to destroy America from within. I mean, it's Rashida Tlaib talking about it. She's a congresswoman. And she's not being repudiated by the leadership of her party. And again, there are also anti-Semites in the Republican Party. It is not a right-left issue. It's not a political issue. But the second that America gets to this state where it's literally institutionalized, well, then it becomes policy. That's the step to policy, and all right? I hope it never happens. I believe it will happen. I don't know when. I hope it takes a long time, but I think things are going really quickly. And the fact that it's begun to be institutionalized, because it's not being repudiated by leadership, that's a problem. That's a big red flag warning sign to American Jewry in America. Okay?
So I'm going to give you an anecdote real quick, and then I have a question for you. You had made the comment, though, about Jews and October 7th. So I'm Jewish, went to Temple Emmanuel, bar mitzvah, everything all good. I was secular, and I didn't wear a kippah until October 27th, 3 weeks after the attacks, because they said, with rising anti-Semitism, Jews need to hide. And I'm like, what the hell with that.
What's your name?
Eric.
Eric?
Yeah.
Kol hakavod, Eric. Kol hakavod.
I just wanted you to have an example about, where people will hide, and it amazes me. I'm in Chipotle today, and a guy, I don't know, he walks up, Shalom. I've worn my kippah in New York City, Chicago, Las Vegas, Denver. I have no problems. I have never had any issue. I am literally religious about wearing it. On the 27th, the first time I was at a rock and roll concert, it was Motley Crue. I was at a Motley Crue show at the Petcha Center, and a guy yells out, Shabbat Shalom! And I'm like, oh shit, I gotta keep on. So anyway, not everybody hides. You tell me to do something, I'm usually gonna do the opposite. So that's an anecdote if you want to use that. My question for you, and there are many, I'm gonna just pick one, and that is, you say save the soul of a Jew. What does that mean?
When I refer to it, it's about doing what's necessary to help a Jew want to remain part of the Jewish people and not run away because of an embarrassment about what he perceives to be what the Jewish people today represent.
Thank you.
No? And you're more than welcome to come up to me afterwards for more questions. Yes? What's your name?
Michael.
Michael.
Avi, thank you for being here and thank you for everything you say. I agree with everything you've said, but I think taking the anti-Semitism a step farther than where you're taking it, and I actually just got done reading a book by Rabbi Raphael Shore.
Great book.
It's a great book, and he talks about even Hitler didn't hate the Jews, he feared the Jews. The pharaohs feared the Jews. And why do they fear the Jews? Because we bring humanism and humanity to the table. And I think
morality.
If we're gonna battle anti-Semitism, yes, we have this forefront of the icing on the cake and even the cake, but the ingredients to that cake is the humanism that we bring to the table. And people are afraid of us because no matter where we're at, we bring. So the capitalists hate the communist Jews. The communist Jews hate the capitalist Jews. They're going to hate the Jews no matter what. And
right.
Why is it? Because we bring humanism. We bring humanity to the table over and over and over. And because of our connection with Hashem, this is why we'll never be defeated.
Right.
In 3,500 years. But
right.
I think that we forget that. And it's so important to share that everything that you're saying is correct. But the humanism, it's a piece that people, we need Jewish people, secular or non-secular, or religious or non-religious, need to understand that that's what we're bringing to the table, and that's what scares people of us, and that we actually mean to bring good to the world and not to conquer the world. We're not here to conquer the world.
Right.
We're here to bring humanism.
Right. Well, I the only thing I agree with everything except the terminology, because I believe it's morality. It's morality. It's not.
Yes.
Right. It's the morality. We represent morality. I mean, again, I talk about this also in my programming. The purpose of the Jewish people is, again, and everyone asked the question, we're the chosen people. What does that mean we're the chosen people? And I really hate when Jews and rabbis talk about, oh, we're better. Or however they talk about it, they do it in such a way saying we're better. No, we're not better. We're human like everyone else, same flaws as everyone else, same issues of all other communities, Muslim, Christian, atheist, it all exists in the Jewish religious community as well. No, we're not chosen because we're better. We're chosen for a purpose. That's it. And how are we fulfilling our purpose? And we're supposed to fulfill our purpose. And our purpose is to be the representation of God/morality in this world in order to spread morality to all the world. And they hate us because we're successful in doing that. And I like to tell people the biggest success of Judaism in accomplishing this is what? What do you think? No? Christianity. Who said that? The fact that there are billions of Christians in the world who are more moral today, that's Judaism's big success. And the same thing in terms of Islam, monotheism. We still have problems, major problems, but the fact that it spread morality, and even though sometimes it's a little off in that community, but still, we've succeeded, and we're continuing to succeed. And they're also jealous because of our success, and we're still around, and they haven't succeeded in replacing us. So our purpose is to be able to spread morality. And again, the secret sauce, and this is how I taught my kids. Again, we have 4 boys. And again, as a religious Jew, I can be upfront with you as a parent. The hardest thing is really educating your children to continue the value system that is important to you. And again, I could talk about that in terms of the religious values, the religious aspect. And again, I personally do not like the fact that we consider ourselves a religion. We're not a religion. We're a nation. Okay? The secret sauce that God gave us that allows us to continue for 3,500 years is the religious aspect of our national identity. That's why in Judaism we teach, it's not the Jews who keep Shabbat, it's Shabbat that keeps the Jews. Okay, if all the Jews would have stopped keeping Shabbat, and again, I'm not here to tell people what to do and not to do, and everyone do their own thing. But if the Jewish people as an entity would have not kept Shabbat, there'd be no Jews today. Okay, the Shabbat, the rituals we have, that's the secret sauce that allows us to ensure that our children and grandchildren will also be part of the Jewish people. Right? And that's in order to fulfill our purpose as a nation to spread morality to the world. And how best to do this when our nation is in our national homeland where we're supposed to be. I mean, just think of the amount of morality we are spreading to the world today and good by the Jewish people being in Israel. Whether it's how we're fighting this war, whether it's through medical and technology inventions, all the humanitarian aid, all the catastrophe assistance. I mean, we as the Jewish people in Israel are impacting the world in ways that the Jewish people never had the opportunity to do so. And it's because we are where we're supposed to be as a nation. So that's the extra sauce to allow us to really kick in and truly fulfill our purpose. And I'll go a step further. And this wasn't part of the talk, but since you took me in this direction, I proudly believe that the Messiah is going to come one day. I don't have a problem with that. Right? What I do have a problem is with the people within the Jewish community who don't like me, who call me a messianic to try to say that I'm crazy. And therefore, whatever policies I support in Israel are crazy. It's like, well, I'm not the crazy one. I'm supposed to believe in the Messiah. I don't know when he's going to come. I don't know exactly what he's going to do. But I know he's supposed to come. It's like, you're the crazy one who doesn't believe in the Messiah as a Jew. Right? Well, here's the other thing I proudly believe in. I proudly believe that one day the Jewish people will be blessed to rebuild our third temple. Okay? I'm not embarrassed to say that. You know how many Jews are embarrassed to say that? You know how many religious Jews with kippahs on their heads who keep Shabbat are embarrassed to say that? They say it 3 times a day when they daven, when they pray. But yet publicly to say, oh yeah, I want the temple to be rebuilt one day. No, they won't say that. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Probably not. Next year? Probably not. But what's the problem to say that we want it to be done like it's supposed to be done? But here's the kicker. Because the narrative, everything's about the narrative. Narrative is always used against us. People like to say, oh, if the Jews rebuild the third temple, that will kick off World War III. Well, we're already in World War III. And we're not even allowed to have a synagogue on the holiest place to the Jewish people. Bells ringing, like something's off in their analysis. But it's exactly the opposite. Because the rebuilding of the temple is the ultimate symbolism for humanity that God and morality exists in this world with the Jewish people fulfilling our purpose to then really make an impact. Do you know the electricity that will go off in the world the second the Jewish people rebuild our temple in Jerusalem? And then the temple is supposed to be a place where all nations of the world come and pray. As opposed to today, where the Muslim Waqif forbids anyone who's not Muslim from having equal rights on the Temple Mount. Visitation rights, prayer rights. So the world today and the Jewish world has accepted ultimate discrimination of Jews and non-Jews who are non-Muslims, which is the ultimate desecration of God's name, which sends a horrible message to humanity, as opposed to realizing, wait a second, we are the Jewish people. The temple is a symbolism of God that we're supposed to have there to impact all of society and all of humanity. And that's what's going to bring peace. It's not going to push people. We're already in World War III. It's not going to cause World War III. The Muslims know the temple's supposed to be there. The Quran talks about Jerusalem belonging to the Jews and the temple belonging to the being on the Temple Mount of the Jews. Muslims know it. They just don't want it. And they've convinced everyone else not to want it also. What are we going to say? Huh?
Same thing, they're afraid. Because if
They're afraid, right.
Then we bring morality
Exactly.
to the world.
Exactly. And so that's the ultimate step, believe it or not. That will be the proof that, oh my God, the Jews are back. And God is back in this world. Again, regardless of religious level, it's not the issue. But God as a representation of morality, the Jewish people as a representation of morality, and not being afraid of our own shadow. Today we're still afraid of our own shadow and owning up. And hence this war is pushing us to own our true identity, who we are as a Jewish people, and own it, and then move forward. I mean, you know how many Jews today are more supportive of Jews building in Judea and Samaria and Jews living in Gaza? Even the political left in Israel, many today support both of those things. Because the reality has forced them to understand it's necessary. All right? So again, it's a crazy thing. Like again, until the war, people would call me a right-wing fanatic, right? Oh, I believe Judea and Samaria, Jews should live in all of Judea and Samaria, and we should live in Gaza. Oh, you're a right-wing fanatic. You're going to cause war. No. We're in war, and they're killing us no matter what, even when Gaza's totally under their control. But what are we learning now? The only way, the safest place for Jews out of all the places is where we live. Every single place that we pulled out of to try to bring peace has brought more terror and death. We pulled out of Gaza, we got death. We pulled out of South Lebanon, we got death. We pulled out of Judea and Samaria, we got death. That's why we went back to Judea and Samaria in terms of the army. And the only place the army is able to properly protect us, and this isn't me, but these are security officials, it's when there is a civilian presence. Okay? Whenever there are military conflicts all over the world, and all you have is a military presence, no matter how justified, after a while, after soldiers are killed, their support wanes for soldiers to be there. So then the countries pull out, whether it's Israel pulling out of South Lebanon, America pulling out of Afghanistan or Iraq. If there's no civilian presence of that national identity, the military is going to leave. The only place we're able to protect ourselves is where we have a military presence together with a civilian presence. Hence the need for Gaza to be Jewish again on a realistic security level, because that's the only way we're able to protect all 10 million Israeli citizens, not by allowing another Arab self-rule to then be taken over by Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Qatar, whether next year, in 5 years, in 10 years, to then do another October 7th. So reality is pushing more Jews to be more supportive of sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Again, most Jews in Israel. And Israel remaining in the Gaza Strip and potentially even resettling the Gaza Strip. When it'll happen, no clue. But reality is pushing us to understand there is a reason God told us to live in these places. So that's the fusion of spirituality and reality.
But you just sort of spoke to what I was going to ask about, which is the sovereignty movement. So where do you think Israel is on this? Do you think that what events will need to happen in order to express, for the Israeli government to declare sovereignty in Judea and Samaria?
I think it's inevitable that we're going to have sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. I don't know exactly when. It could be already within the next week or two. It could be after the United Nations General Assembly, when France or other countries voice official support to recognize the state of what I call Narnia or Palestine, because there is you can't, even according to international law, you can't be a recognized state if you don't have recognized borders, you don't have governance. Like, there's so many conditions according to international law that are not there for, even if you wanted to create and recognize it, it makes no sense.
What's the breakdown of the MKs
Oh, to support sovereignty?
on the question?
Of sovereignty?
Yes.
Oh, we have a majority of MKs that will support sovereignty tomorrow. I think the issue really is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and how gutsy he is in pushing the envelope of how much of Judea and Samaria to apply sovereignty to. Well, I would like him to apply sovereignty to all of Judea and Samaria. He's not going to do that. Whether it's going to be just the Jordan Valley, whether it's just going to be some of the blocks of settlements, there is going to be, the process going to start because we finally have a president in America that supports us doing this, and Netanyahu wouldn't do it without knowing he has that support of the U.S. president. So it's inevitable, but exactly when or how much or how, that's still up in the air that we don't know about. Yeah? Anyone else? Yes?
So the Israeli government, as I understand it, for the Gaza war, says they want to destroy Hamas and at the same time have equal weight to getting the hostages back.
Right.
Is that compatible?
You're asking me for the official Israeli government position or for the official Avi Abelo Pulse of Israel positions?
No, your position.
Okay. Official Avi Abelo Pulse of Israel position. I'm first going to explain Netanyahu, okay? Because I have a lot of criticism for Prime Minister Netanyahu over the years. At the same time, I understand most of the time the reasoning behind his decisions, whether I agree or disagree. The reason, on a basic War 101 level, to protect the civilians of your population, it makes no sense to prioritize saving hostages over winning a war. Because you have to protect 10 million Israeli citizens. You try your best to save the hostages as quickly as possible, as many as possible, but the priority is ensuring that 10 million Israeli civilians are protected moving forward. Hence all the talk in Israel and in the Jewish community about ending the war at any price, allowing Hamas to be in control. You can't win a war, or you can't defeat an enemy if you don't get into the head of the enemy. If you don't understand the enemy, you don't understand you don't understand the motivation of the enemy, or and basically we're dealing with an enemy that uses its own mothers, grandmothers, children as human shields. They don't care if they get killed. They don't care if their mothers get killed. They don't care if their children get killed. Okay? They don't care about life. So it doesn't make a difference how many of them we kill. They're still going to continue. At the same time, so long as one of them remain alive living in Gaza, guess what? They believe they won to kill us another day. So you have to have a victory where they internalize and perceive and understand that they lost. So if it's not about ending the war, but still surviving to regroup and rearm and kill another day, and it's not about how much of their population is killed, which is obviously not a goal of the war, and they're doing it as a PR move to make Israel look bad, then how do you win? What do they care about? They only care about one thing. They care about land. And you can't defeat an enemy that cares about land unless you make them pay the price with land. Again, anyone who's familiar with Dr. Mordechai Kedar, expert on Islam in the Middle East, so he talks about this a lot, how in Islam there are 3 different categories of land in the world. There's the category that's under Islamic control, there's the category that was once under Islamic control, and there's the category that is not yet under Islamic control. Because the purpose of Islam, and again, I do not believe Islam, just like we're not a religion, we're a nation, Islam is not a religion either. Islam is a political ideology with the flavors of the fragrance of a religion. It's about taking over the world. So they only care about land because they want to take over the world. So how do you defeat an enemy that only cares about land? Well, you take the land back. You take the land for yourself. You take it back. So the only way to really win this war so that we protect 10 million Israeli civilians moving forward and to demoralize the enemy is that we take our land back. So you tried to destroy us from Gaza? Well, sorry. No matter all the times we tried to make peace with you, and we even gave it to you and destroyed 21 Jewish communities and expelled 10,000 Jews from their homes to try to make peace with you, well, you've proven on October 7th that you're not interested in ever living in peace with us. So we finally have to do what's necessary to live peacefully, and that's for us to retake the Gaza Strip, and anyone who wants to kill us is no longer living there. So I'm a big supporter of Trump's immigration plan. Okay? I don't want them going to America. I don't want them going to Europe. But they definitely can't live near us in Gaza to threaten us again. So now that's Avi Abel, Pulse of Israel. What is Netanyahu's purpose in ensuring that the war goals prioritized saving hostages at the same level as winning the war? Because with all the unity I talk about below the surface, there are very powerful forces always trying to divide us. And with all of my own criticism of Netanyahu, one thing Netanyahu has always tried to do, he understands the powers that are always trying to divide us, always trying to topple him, always politicizing issues to topple him and topple right-wing governments. And he's always trying to do his best to placate all of Israeli society, to have as much unity as possible and prove the other camp wrong so that there's enough support to continue fighting this war. Hence, this is one of the reasons the war has taken so long in 2 years, because it's prioritized trying to save the hostages in order to ensure that a majority of Israeli citizens, regardless of the daily news reports and the daily propaganda in the Israeli news media, demoralizing Israelis on a day-in, day-out level of how we're losing this war and we have to save the hostages and at any time, and even the news, not only do they not report, they then announce when the next protest is, as if they're an unpaid arm of the protest movement, because they are. So Netanyahu has, even though I disagree on a fundamental ideological level, but I understand on a practical, realpolitik level, he ensured that we are trying to save the hostages at the same time as trying to win the war, which means we've lost a lot of soldiers. Okay, we've lost a lot more soldiers than hostages we're going to be retrieving alive. So it's even and it's sad because even the moral conversation isn't being had, and it's a big moral conversation. But the proof is in the pudding. Whereas the protest movement in Israel, while still exists, is on a very low flame because most Israelis understand, and especially all the reserve soldiers who are fighting, that we are doing everything we can to fight the hostages, and they're not necessarily believing the daily headlines that are constantly pumping out there that it's Netanyahu that's killing the hostages, that Smotrich and Ben Gvir being in the government that are killing the hostages, that it's Israel that said no to the deal, as ignoring that it's Hamas that keeps on saying no, and even if it's all about playing for time and they're never going to release all of them, that's the only joker they have in their hand, as if ignoring the enemy. So that would be my explanation and answer. Okay? Yes?
Unfortunately, that's all we have.
Have one more? One more?
It's a quick one. No, I was just going to add that from minute one, the narrative that was used of bring them home is what fueled part of this division, and I think it was purposeful.
100%.
The narrative really should have been let them go. Like, who are you asking to bring them home? It's not our responsibility. I mean, yes, on some level, but really,
It's let them go. They're responsible.
let them go. They're the ones that took them. Let them go.
Right.
And the second part of that is the miracle that people don't want to look at is that we have gotten 200.
Oh my, 100%. That's another. If anyone listening to the experts, right, anyone listening to the experts on October 8th, no one thought we would get any hostages. Any hostages. Any expert. And my biggest beef with my own friends who are on the other side of the political camp. It's like, you're still screaming that Netanyahu is responsible for killing the hostages. You know what? Complain about the fact that there are still 48 there. Okay, fine, complain about it. But no recognition whatsoever that he has miraculously succeeded in getting over 200 out. There's no perspective. In Judaism, we have hakarat hatov. No understanding of even being thankful for what has been accomplished. It's like it's total a political campaign. And all the media surrounds us is total political campaign, which again, Netanyahu has, I believe, succeeded in surfing through and surviving to get through. And thank you so much for adding that. Thank you so much, everybody.